Space Quest historian. Instead of heeding my warning about this not being worth your time in my previous video, apparently a bunch of devs saw this as a challenge instead, and now I have a new bunch of games that people have sent me to take a look at. So in this video, I'm going to be taking a look at 4 new adventure games. Some are already out at the time of making this video, and some of them are, or at least were at the time I played them, demos of upcoming games. Now before we begin, I'll remind you of the rules of this little endeavor. Rules that, bear in mind, I've explained to the devs prior to accepting their offers. I tried my best to give them a fair shake, but I only played these games for as long as I could be bothered, or, as you'll see in one case, for as long as the game would let me before shitting the bed. So take this into consideration as I give my unfair and cursory recommendations for whether or not these games are worth your time playing. Some of them I didn't even bother to play through all the way, some of them I gave up on when I became too frustrated or bored, or if they crapped out on me and refused to let me proceed. So for all I know, some of these might be unforgettable masterpieces that reward you for sticking with them to the end, but first impressions matter, and if a game doesn't grab me within the first hour or so of playing it, then fuck it, I'm not gonna waste my time with it. I only have so many fucks to give. And again, I must stress, I did not solicit any of these games. I will only play games that the developers or publishers sent to me out of the blue. I don't go around asking devs for keys to their game. I don't know any of these people personally. They sent me their games of their own free will, and now they're gonna pay for it. Also, it bears reiterating that these are not popular videos. Compared to other videos I put out, the view counts on these showcase videos are not very impressive. So I will reiterate to other hopeful devs, being featured in one of these videos is not gonna be the big break you may have been hoping for, but that's on them, not me. So here we go, let's get into it. Okay, I gotta admit, this one started off very promising. The art style is charming, the animation is very well done, the voice acting is decent, and the music is this wonderful synthwave adjacent stuff that I'm personally a bit of a sucker for. And the premise is fairly intriguing. A young boy named, Sim? Yeah, I'm not gonna remember that. Sorry, kid. Anyway, he goes on a midnight walk through the forest to find his lost dog, only to come across a strange glowing light. Some dude wearing a full body condom emerges from the light and military helicopters start flying overhead, so shit's clearly not right in this otherwise tranquil little woodland area. Sounds like a tantalizing mystery, right? Unfortunately, the problems with this game rear their heads early on. For starters, the dialogue is absolutely terrible. It was clearly written by someone whose native language isn't English, and some might say I should cut it some slack on that front, but I disagree. If you're not up to the task of writing in proper English, then just write it in your own language and pay someone to translate it. This pigeon prose is frankly just embarrassing. And even if the awkward word choices and bizarre sentence constructions aren't a deal breaker for you, the dialogue is just really bad on a fundamental level. Nothing is conveyed beyond what is absolutely necessary at the moment. We learn nothing about our main character or his family, other than his dad likes falling asleep on the couch and his dog likes her frisbee.
She likes her frisbee. I'll get my bag first, then look for the frisbee. Now where is this frisbee? Only the frisbee would cheer her up. The frisbee's not here. Maybe mom knows where the frisbee's at. Where is this frisbee? But where is this frisbee? Frisbee, 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 frisbee.
Seriously, shut up about the frisbee, dude. And when the game starts going for enigmaticism with this body condom dude, he alternates between casually chatty and cagey to the point of paranoia, like he's having a personality crisis. And after a fruitless conversation where you learn absolutely nothing, he then tells you to fuck off and go hide somewhere, which you then try to do, but fail because dipshit here can't climb a foot ladder. And this might be a good time to bring up the puzzle design of this game because it is fundamentally quite terrible, even worse than the dialogue. And this foot ladder puzzle is probably the worst that this game can dish out. To climb this thing, you have to click 3 separate hotspots in quick succession, otherwise dumbass here leaps off the steps in defeat. But it's not just a matter of clicking them as fast as possible, there's a timing element to it, and it is not at all intuitive. You're supposed to watch the animation of this dingbat and click the various hotspots as he's making his way up the ladder, but the timing doesn't match what step he's on or where he's looking. It's just complete guesswork, and you will fail repeatedly, and you will become fucking aggravated, not just at the fact that this absolute fucking imbecile is incapable of climbing a ladder that he installed himself, but also that anyone thought that this was a great idea for a puzzle and no one talked them out of it.
Frisbee.
And what's really bizarre is that the game tells you you're in a hurry. Time is of the essence. You have to find a place to hide. Military personnel are swarming the place, and condom dude here is clearly bad news, but repeatedly falling off this fucking fucking ladder because dipshit McGee is too fucking stupid to coordinate his arms and legs without third-party intervention just sucks all the urgency out of what is supposed to be a tense and exciting moment. And then the game fucking does it again. A short time later, you'll find yourself pinned down behind a tree by two military dudes, and obviously you need to cause some sort of distraction to get past them. You're carrying about 1,000,000 acorns, and the sensible solution to this puzzle would be to just toss one off in the distance to preoccupy them and give you a moment to tiptoe past them. But no, obviously what you need to do is toss your acorns at a squirrel that's only in range for a few seconds, then toss some more acorns at it and its buddy that magically appears out of nowhere, and this somehow provides enough of a distraction.
Looks like a frisbee to me.
Again, any semblance of excitement is almost immediately deflated while you chuck 5,000,000 acorns at this tree before realizing that this tiny squirrel, who looks like a random background animation, is somehow important, and that it needs to be in a very specific position before it'll do anything helpful. And meanwhile, these two soldier dudes must have all the time in the world, because they never get bored pointing their guns at a single tree in a dark forest that keeps spitting out acorns for no reason, instead of hunting down the condom dude they actually came for, who, incidentally, is less than 30 feet away. He's over on the next screen from here. They're literally looking right at him. But no, acorns and squirrels, that's where the real excitement is. Good fucking lord. Also, the pacing of this game is so off, it's almost like it's doing it on purpose.
Frisbee.
The opening part of the game is about escaping your own house because you're supposed to be in bed, and this part has so many bewildering steps that defy all common sense and logic that it just boggles the mind. First of all, the goal here is just fucking bizarre. What the game expects you to do is, I shit you not, fashion a fucking lockpick to unlock the front door of your house. Hold on a fucking minute. What kind of front door requires you to unlock it with a key from the inside? What kind of fucking sense does that make?
Frisbee.
And to do this, you get a staple gun, slam a staple into this plank of wood, extract the bent staple, then hammer it into shape, all without somehow waking up anyone in the process. And then there's this shit with the fucking toolbox. The first time you look in it, it just contains tools, batteries, and no frisbee. Again with the fucking frisbee. And then later you realize that you need batteries to fix your broken RC toy. Again, for no fucking reason.
I like batteries.
I thought we were meant to be going outside and not play with our fucking toys here, but Buddy here has the prioritization skills of a fucking parakeet. But this fucking frisbee is in this chest, and dumbass locked it and forgot where he put the key. Now it's under the rug in his bedroom, but instead of just lifting it and checking under it like a normal person, the solution is to go around the house looking for batteries for the RC toy, then activate it, which then rolls up the carpet for you. What the fuck? Anyway, this magic toolbox all of a sudden contains a single AA battery that wasn't there before. It just magically appears as soon as you for some reason decide that your little RC car is a priority. But it gets worse. Later, as I said, you punch a stapler into this plank of wood because staplers apparently make great lockpicks. I was unaware of this, but it's so deeply embedded into the wood that you can't pry it back out with your fingers. This hammer you're carrying around somehow won't do the trick, but for some reason a screwdriver will. Now the screwdriver is also in the toolbox, but once again, it only magically appears once you've punched the stapler in. This toolbox is really just the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? Now let me break this down for you. Having to check the same item multiple times because an invisible trigger in the game's code fired is just about the shittiest form of puzzle design there is. Wait, no, I take that back. It's still this fucking stepladder. Oh, and bonus points for the pixel hunting. There's a suction cup dart on this screen that you need to pick up. Do you see it? 3, 2, 1, time's up. It's here. Needless to say, I didn't bother finishing this demo because it just pissed me off so much. Sure, it looks pretty good, but this game is exactly why we have the phrase "don't judge a book by its cover." In this case, the cover looks great, but the book itself turns out to be written in crayon by a 6-year-old and has little stains of dirt, dried milk, and God knows what other substances smeared across the pages. Would I recommend? No. It's a pretty game, and the music is pretty good, but it's absolutely inept at everything else. Moving on to something a little less infuriating, I actually don't have a lot to say about this one. It's cute, the graphics are nice, and the voice acting isn't bad. It's got this sort of Simon the Sorcerer vibe to it, except the protagonist isn't a completely insufferable twat. The premise for this game is that you're this dude who wants to become a wizard, not a pirate, so he's gotten himself an internship at the local wizard academy, and there's a bit of Discworld there for you as well. Your first task is to recover 3 books that the head wizard has lost, and this task is actually a lot easier than you might think. 3 books sound like a quest chain that would easily take up the entire first act of a game, but all of this was over in just about 20 minutes. It turns out this shit with the 3 books is just a quick hors d'oeuvre for what I assume is a meteor main course. It's so easy that it honestly feels like these puzzles are missing some steps. It's kind of like they were part of some bigger puzzle chain that got cut down. And of course, once it's all done and dusted, that's the end of the demo, so this really is just a tiny morsel of an experience. But anyway, that's not to say I didn't have a good time with it. Of course, the demo ends right as things are about to become interesting when our plucky hero unwittingly releases a force of unimaginable evil from a room he was specifically told on numerous occasions not to go into, because I guess the presence of tits just eradicates every ounce of common sense from his body, and the subsequent heavy burden of putting things right now falls on his unqualified shoulders, as befits any coming-of-age adventure game story about a would-be pirate. Sorry, wizard. Anyway, as I said, there's not really much to say about this one. It seems to be shaping up to be a decent little adventure. Nothing that's gonna set the world on fire or revolutionize the genre. The puzzles are all standard lateral thinking exercises, pick this shit up, use it on this other shit, and it's all fairly straightforward and makes sense in the sort of cartoon logic fashion we know from classic adventure games. Side note, I really hate it when point-and-click devs describe their games as a throwback to the classic adventure games of the 90s, because it just implies that the genre hasn't evolved in any meaningful way for the past 30 decades, which it has. But if there ever was a game that deserved to be called a throwback to the classic 90s adventure games in a positive way, this would be it. It really does feel like a classic 90s adventure game, right down to the graphics, the UI, and the whimsical humor, and it actually pulls off this vibe really competently. So, all in all, this is just a cute little adventure game that's not trying to be more than it is, and you can't really fault it for that. So would I recommend? Yeah, sure, why not? It's not gonna blow you away, but it seems like a good time, and you could definitely do a lot worse. Speaking of which... Now here's a game that definitely tries to bite off more than it can chew. First of all, I've never seen a game be in so much of a rush to get its premise out of the way before dumping you into the gameplay. I tried playing through this demo multiple times, more on that later, but I'm still struggling to figure out exactly what's actually going on here. As far as I can gather, you're an undercover operative in a secret rebellious organization that's trying to take down some monstrous corporate conglomerate in a far-flung cyberpunk-esque future where the moon has been colonized and nobody seems too happy about it. Instead of easing you into this setting and who your cast of characters are, the game just dumps you straight into your first mission with little to no explanation of why or how. There are some text logs lying around in the first room that are supposed to provide you with the foundational knowledge of the world and the importance of your mission, but they're so bogged down with impenetrable cyber nonsense and technobabble that it's nearly impossible to make heads or tails of what's important and what's just fanciful flavor jargon. Apparently, the goal of our mission is to get some research scientist on the moon to jump ship and join your little ragtag battalion of insurgent misfits. And sure, that sounds like it might be a lot of fun, but quite disappointingly, you never actually get to do any of that. Instead, your cover gets blown almost immediately, and you spend the rest of the time in this demo trying to prison break your way out of the facility, while your other team members accomplish the mission off-screen. Not the most exciting or fulfilling turn of events, I think you'll agree. On the gameplay side, the UI is a somewhat bewildering combination of side-scrolling 2D and point-and-click adventure gaming, kind of like the Cat Lady, but a lot less intuitive. Whereas the Cat Lady opted for keyboard-only interaction and actually made that work quite surprisingly well, this game requires you to use both the keyboard and the mouse to accomplish everything. Well, you can just use the mouse exclusively to both walk around and interact with stuff, but it very much seems like the intent was for you to use the keyboard for walking and the mouse for interacting with stuff. Walking with the mouse just seems jank and unresponsive, but if you ask me, this whole thing would have worked so much better if you didn't have the mouse at all and just used the keyboard for everything, especially since for a point-and-click game, you don't actually do much pointing and clicking. Instead, what you're meant to do is just walk up to any given hotspot and then interact with it using these floating icons that appear above it. These icons can only be interacted with using the mouse, so it slows down the gameplay quite considerably. If there had been keyboard shortcuts for these interactions, it would have made things a lot easier and less finicky, but as it is, you have to quite laboriously maneuver your character into position and then fiddle with the mouse cursor to try and hit these icons that never seem to pop up in the same place twice. Also, quite bewilderingly, a majority of these interactions require you to hold down the mouse button or tap it rapidly to fill up some sort of progress meter, for seemingly no other reason than to arbitrarily insert some sort of urgency into the proceedings. There's no real penalty for not doing it right other than having to try again, although I suspect future puzzles might introduce some sort of fail-state, which just makes this all the more bullshit if you ask me, but as it is now, it just comes off as a bizarre gameplay mechanic that doesn't really offer any additional challenge beyond being a bit annoying. This even extends to the dialogue trees, which, again, for some unknown reason, are also on a timer. Not because they have to be, but because the game wants you to think you're in a rush at all times, and I just don't see why this was necessary. Now, all of these combined letdowns are bad enough, but the truly major downfall of this game, or at least its demo, is just how buggy it is. Upon completing the mission, which I assume is supposed to be the end of the demo, the game just soft locks on the screen where I'm guessing the rocket is supposed to take off, but it never does. If you go back to the main menu and click continue, it puts you back at the start of the mission, but when you then have to go and have a chat with a security guard at the start of the game and he's supposed to cart you off to your holding cell, the game just soft locks again. If you restart the game completely from the beginning, it does reset all the triggers and let you play up to the rocket bit again, but then it just soft locks again. Now, the day after I played this for the first time, I saw that there'd been an update to the game, so I played it again, and nothing has changed. The game still soft locks on the rocket screen no matter what options I choose throughout the game, and I'm pretty sure I tried all of them. I don't know if the developers were in just as much of a rush as our protagonist here seems to constantly be, but it sure as shit doesn't inspire a lot of confidence if the demo of your game is so utterly broken that you can't even finish it. But even if it wasn't completely broken, the plot just doesn't strike me as being particularly interesting. The animation looks weird. I don't know if she has a limp or this is just how people walk in the future, but it's certainly off-putting. And doling out your massive world-building lore dump in a series of text boxes is just lazy. So would I recommend? Well, if the plot goes somewhere beyond the box standard rebels doing rebel things and the developers get their shit together as far as game-breaking bugs are concerned, it might be interesting. I certainly wouldn't recommend putting this game on your wish list just yet, but maybe there is something here, maybe not. My advice to the developers would be maybe ease the player more gently into the oh-so-meticulously crafted world you've created, and maybe in the future spend some time checking to see if your game actually works as intended before sending it off to reviewers and YouTubers to look at. Just a suggestion. Anyway, let's round things off with something that can't possibly cause any sort of controversy whatsoever. Giddy up, comrades! It's time to do your part and keep the Soviet Empire safe from the fields of capitalism. Well, actually not. This game isn't exactly a slice of Soviet propaganda. In fact, it's quite charming. You play as Yuri Spritivich, an energetic go-getter in the Soviet army who has been assigned to a missile silo in Siberia. Now, I'm not sure what he did to piss off the high command, but he seems rather unfazed by all of this, so I'm just going to assume he's fine with it. Your main goal is to try your best not to accidentally launch an intercontinental ballistic missile and inadvertently setting off World War III, which is harder than it seems because all the equipment in the missile bunker has gone to shit, and it's up to you to make sure it gets back up and running before you become indirectly responsible for the end of civilized life as we know it. Now, this game is actually two games in one. Dead Hand, hilariously misspelled with a 3 instead of an E because Cyrillic looks funny to people who can't read it, is the first game, and this is the one that has the story I just described. The second game, Red Star, is a direct continuation of the story, but it has you go off and find a secret base somewhere in the frozen tundra to investigate a strange distress signal. I played through all of the first game, but I didn't quite make it through the second game because while the first game is a pretty decent puzzle arena type affair that most people would be able to comfortably finish in a few hours, the second game ramps up the difficulty and scope by frankly ridiculous degrees. In the first game, all you're really doing is trying to get these 4 machines back up and running, and each of them have this little logic puzzle that must be solved in order to configure them. Now, my stance on logic puzzles should be well known to regular viewers of my channel, but I will reiterate for the newly initiated here that I hate them, and they can fuck right off. Now, to this game's credit, the logic puzzles never devolve into missed levels of catastrophic obtuseness, but some of them, like this steam valve puzzle, or this plug these wires in to make all the buttons go green puzzle, or whatever this fucking fucking thing is supposed to be, gave me nightmarish flashbacks to this shit from the 7th guest with the coffins, and I pretty much just had to use brute force to solve them. On the other hand, solving this code using the map and symbols, or this twisty-turny circuit board thing, were actually quite fun, at least in comparison. The game does give you a nice set of hints in the form of a technical manual that you can read whenever you want, and rather benignly, it will even helpfully display additional documents containing hints on screen as you're trying to solve a puzzle, like this aforementioned code-breaking thing. In between all this logic puzzle mayhem are a smattering of classic use this on that exercises, like using a bottle of vodka to refuel a lighter so you can turn on an oven and melt a block of ice with it, and these were fun. I wish there had been more of them, but apparently logic puzzles was where this developer's heart truly lay. That said, I did have a pretty good time with Dead Hand. What really keeps this game from getting bogged down is that it has a great sense of humor. Obviously, making fun of Russians is a sensitive topic, and I'm not Russian, so I can't speak for them, but this game doesn't feel mean-spirited. It has this really lighthearted, comedic tone, and sure, it does rely on a few eye-rolling stereotypes for its jokes, but how can you hate a game that has a cat named Stalin, who also outranks you? Also, for some reason, the absurdly over-the-top amateur-level voice acting really does it for me. I can't be mad at an adventure game protagonist who sounds like Dolph Lundgren in Rocky IV if he was just a chill dude trying to get through an honest day's work.
Боже мой, that box is extremely radioactive.
So yeah, Dead Hand is a good time, even if it sort of misses the mark in terms of my personal preference for puzzle solving, but as my friend Mick would say,
that sounds like a you problem, mate.
Where things really started to go off the rails for me, though, was in the second game, Red Star. It's a much more expansive game than the first one, where you get to visit more locations and there's a bit of mystery to the plot, which is all well and good, but the puzzles take a serious spike up the difficulty curve. Whereas this decoding puzzle from Dead Hand was fun and not too difficult, but still very rewarding to solve, this one from Red Star had me baffled for what seemed like ages. Eventually, I just had to give up and go consult the in-game hints. You can phone up this guy in the bunker who somehow clairvoyantly knows the solutions to the puzzles you encounter out in the wild, and eventually he'll just flat out give you the solution to the puzzle. And even knowing what the solution was, going back, I still couldn't make heads or tails of the actual puzzle. Now, obviously, again, that's probably just me being a dum-dum and not being very good at these types of puzzles, but this wasn't an isolated incident. This game is way harder than the first game, so if you felt the first game wasn't challenging enough, then I'm happy to report that the developer certainly gives you bang for your buck in the second one. Also, you get to play as Stalin the cat who has cool night vision abilities, and that makes for some fun back and forth puzzle solving, so yeah. There does appear to be a bit more jank in this game though. For instance, the inventory UI at the bottom of the screen tends to jitter around a bit, but it's all just cosmetic stuff and nothing that breaks the game, or at least not as far as I played before giving up. Obviously, the art style isn't going to win any awards, and again, it's one of those pixel art games where the size of the pixels are wildly inconsistent throughout, but if a game is fun to play and has as much charm as this one, then I don't really mind that all that much. Would I recommend these games? Well, first of all, you're getting 2 games for the price of 1, and that's nothing to sneeze at. As I said, the humor and clever puzzle design really carries this game very far. If these kinds of puzzles are right in your wheelhouse, I'd say this is worth checking out. The puzzles aren't personally my jam, but your mileage may, and indeed most likely will, vary on that point. So yeah, give this one a whirl if some befuddling brain teasers smothered in Cold War humor is your thing. And that does it for this outing. If you want to have a look for yourself at any of these games, I've put links to them in the video description. Now, I will remind you that all the games I covered in this video were sent to me unsolicited by the developers of their own free will, and I made it quite clear to them that I would be unfiltered and brutally honest in my opinions, and they had every opportunity to back out, and they chose not to. So if you're a developer or publisher with similar masochistic tendencies, then feel free to send me your game. I won't promise to be kind to it, and I won't even promise to play all the way through it, and you're probably better off not doing so at all because, as I said, these aren't very popular videos and they don't get a lot of views. But if all those caveats aren't enough to deter you, then fucking have at it. I'm the Space Quest Historian. Until next time, keep dreaming and keep reaching for the stars. You might make it, but you most likely won't, and that's just how it goes. Take care, and I'll see you around the Chrono Stream. Bye.
Now where is this frisbee?